Have you ever witnessed something so absurd, so gloriously petty, that it twisted your face into a smile and a scream, both desperate to break free? That was me, socket wrench in hand, tightening the final bolt on a 6-foot barricade of pine and pride, an unapologetic monument stretching from sun-bleached grass through a public dock, all the way into the shimmer of the lake. Behind me, the witnesses. A dozen stunned neighbors, jaws unhinged, silent, as if watching history etch a line down Eden itself. On the other side of the boards, Margaret, and just beside her, Karen, the infamous queen of the HOA. She stood there, frozen, her lawn chaise lounges and half-built jet ski empire freshly orphaned behind a wall of lumber. Her weapon of choice, bylaws. Her battlefield, every backyard she could see from her kitchen window. But little did she know, this fence wasn't just wood and nails. It was war. And it had been 5 years coming. It started with a dream. Willowbrook Estates promised serenity, deeded lakefront access, sandy beach, a dock shared in the spirit of neighborly joy. My kids learned to fish there. We swam there. We laughed until twilight kissed the water. That shoreline wasn't just pretty on a brochure. It was ours. Then 6 months ago, Karen Fitzgerald took the helm of the HOA, and the slow rot began. She wore her new title like a throne, dictating lawn lengths, banning wind chimes, demanding floral approval as though tulips were defiance. But power craves loyalty, and Karen had it in spades. Her brother-in-law? Suddenly our landscaping inspector, with pay. Her childhood friend? Given the pool contract. And when Cousin Margaret flew in for a visit, the rules dissolved like sugar in rain. It began with tiki torches and recliners. Then came the speakers, louder than the birds ever dared be. And finally, construction. A private jet ski ramp rising from the shared bank like a palace on stolen land. I tried kindness first, walked over, introduced myself, gently pointed to where private ended and shared began. Margaret didn't blink. She thrust a paper in my face, a so-called easement reassignment signed not by a judge, but by Karen, claiming the HOA had gifted her this half of the lake for resource management. Because apparently, I'm only around on weekends. I wasn't just suspicious. I was furious, quietly, surgically. And I went digging. County records, city planning, purchase agreements buried in legal dust. The truth gleamed like a sword in the dark. The lakefront was deeded, protected. Off limits to HOA meddling. Karen's power play wasn't just overreach. It was a legal fantasy. I brought it to the next board meeting. And Karen? She performed. Rage rising, voice trembling. She claimed the HOA had changed the bylaws, gave them full control of the water line. Anyone who pushed back? $500 a day fine. She even cited a secret vote from a meeting no one could remember, filled with board members who'd been out of state. But it wasn't just the documents, it wasn't just the lies, it was the moment. My daughter, 8 years old, walked down the shore one morning with her swim towel and innocence in hand. Margaret blocked her path, said it was private now, told her to turn around. She did, with tears in her eyes and sunlight crashing against that ridiculous jet ski ramp. That was it. That was the trigger. By day, I'm a contracts attorney. And now, this was home turf. I dove into everything. The HOA charter, deeds, maps, decades of amendments and decisions. And I emerged holding the ultimate card. The HOA had zero legal claim. Any interference in deeded property opened them up to personal liability. I drafted a certified notice, delivered it with precision. 3 days. Clear it all. Or we go to war. Karen laughed. Margaret doubled down. By the time they arrived at my doorstep, they brought drama and a dollar store lawyer. Theatrics, bribes, bargains. Margaret even proposed a shared schedule. Their attorney muttered nonsense about squatters' rights. I handed him a copy of actual property law with the same grace I'd offer a lost tourist a map. Then the 72 hours passed, and Margaret was still building her tiki kingdom. A pavilion, no less. So I fired the first real shot. I hired a licensed surveyor. He marked each inch with a red thread of truth. The lakefront belonged to both of us. Equally, Margaret had invaded more than half. Armed with permits, blueprints, and the ghost of every petty HOA skirmish I'd endured, I bought fencing. Miles of it. The hardware clerk just gasped when I told him what it was for. The street whispered as word spread. And then, at dawn, we built. Post by post, panel by panel, from grassy edge, straight through the dock, into the cool waters of justice. Poetic. Perfect. A border carved from righteousness and regulation. Margaret emerged mid-construction, coffee mug in hand. It slipped, shattered, echoed. Karen appeared moments later, bathrobe, curlers, and fury incarnate. She screamed, claimed vandalism, trespass, even identity theft. She called the police. They left with smiles and no action. She called the city. Code enforcement praised the precision. She even contacted officials so high up I half expected a drone strike. None came. But the fence came down, metaphorically, that night. The emergency HOA meeting overflowed. Karen tried to crucify me in front of the crowd, but the crowd wasn't with her. One by one, neighbors stepped forward. Tom Harrison, retired judge, calmly dismantled her claims. Sarah Chen showed photos of the flower garden Karen's crew had bulldozed on a whim. Then came whispers of skimming, misused funds, nepotism. Margaret's husband arrived, saw the circus, and simply said, "We're leaving." As he helped dismantle the beach empire, he muttered something about Karen dragging them into an expensive catastrophe. Finally, Karen tried a last-ditch executive order to remove the fence, but the board's own lawyer had heard enough. He stood, voice like thunder, and said what we all knew. She had crossed the line, and she would pay for it. A unanimous vote removed her on the spot. Then came the audit. Turns out Karen had funneled thousands into fake easements, bogus contracts, and her brother-in-law's bottomless pockets. 3 months later, she stood before a judge. Guilty, fraud, embezzlement, breach of duty, 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service, and nearly $5,000 in restitution. Some mornings now, I sit by that lake, coffee in hand. The fence still stands, silent, straight. A boundary in wood and truth. The water glistens, untouched by power plays or patio furniture. Karen is gone, and peace, real, quiet, earned peace, has returned.